Hello, this is John with Brainstorm Comics and Gaming with this week's Turning the Page. And this week I'm joined by Mr. Sizzle, otherwise known as Chandler Zirkle. So this week we got a full slate of topics to cover, unlike last week. I know we had an abbreviated one last week. So we're going to jump into the topics. We won't do any joke to open up this week. Chandler, I know you're probably happy about my bad jokes being set aside.
I think America's happy.
America could be happy as well. So jumping into topic number one. After the success of Hill House Comics, the horror line, DC is creating a whole new imprint with the very creative title of DC Horror. That is beginning with The Conjuring 3. What do you think this new initiative will lead to, if anything?
I think what's important, I think the reason why Hill House worked with a lot of people is, superhero comics are really great for people who like superheroes, and I'm not saying DC should stop making superhero books because that is their bread and butter, but if you do want to diversify and cast a wider net for people, I know people who strictly read indies that were coming in, and you saw them as well. I mean, Joe Hill was a big name in order for them to get him to come in to get these types of comics, but if they're starting to see things that you would typically only find in maybe an indie book with DC, his logo right on the top corner, they're going, what's this? No, this isn't, Batman, Super, like, what's going on here? I think it's important that they do try to keep it separate. I think there could be, they already have Black Label if they want to throw in, Constantine, some of those other type of, characters that could go, Swamp Thing that could go that route. I think they should leave it a little bit separate and not try to have the regular cast from DC try to jump in there. I think they should keep it its own thing, at least for a while, to get it off the ground.
Now, one of the things I think is weird is starting it with The Conjuring. I feel like they have enough characters that fit that horror. I'm sure it's a
Warner Brothers,
an AOL, Time Warner, whatever property. But I don't know. They have enough characters already within their pantheon. I think that would be good for this. I think they probably should come up with a better name than DC Horror. And if I had to guess, I would say that they didn't want to pay Joe Hill the amount of money that he wanted to be paid, and we're like, you know what? We'll just get some new writers to work in that line and try and mine that same ground, just with different characters. I think having Joe Hill involved would have probably been better. Again, the name recognition does matter. Maybe that is why they went with The Conjuring, because it does have an automatic fan base in it.
Right. I agree. I think that's one big reason probably why. I think also, like I said, it is owned by the same company, parent company. So I think that's one reason why I got pushed. But I think, again, knowing that it's not going to be Hill House anymore, and that was a big thing that got people through the door. If you can't have the big name author, you can have the big name idea. And like I said, it seems like they're not planning on using. I know there's been maybe one other that they've announced that's going to be in June or July that also is not a character from typical DC Comics. If they are going with the original character route, I think it probably was important for them to at least, here's something that you might recognize. It might not be your cup of tea, but you know of it, get your beak wet, and then we're going to start off with the
Which
original.
one was that? Because I didn't see anything about a second one.
I can't remember the name of it. When I was looking through June or July previews, and it might just be a Black Label book that I'm mixing up and continuing and adding them together, which, again, when I first saw that Conjuring, I assumed it was just Black Label until I looked closer and saw it said DC Horror, not DC Black Label.
Now, if they were smart, I think they would have gone after like Cullen Bunn, who clearly wouldn't be as pricey as Joe Hill, but I mean, he would probably still cost some money because he has built his name in that genre. But at least you get some quality name recognition with like the DC Horror line at that stage.
I think he'd be really good as especially like a mentor figure to kind of branch out and have his own type of thing going on, or maybe how they had Neil Gaiman with that Sandman thing where he wasn't really writing all the books. He was maybe doing one or two, and then he was, parent. I mean, Joe Hill, the same thing. He was kind of like the brainchild of it all. I think Cullen Bunn, especially right now, anybody who's reading independent books, he's a very talented writer in all fields, but horror definitely seems to be his cup of tea. Where he really hits those notes. So I think he would be a really good person to learn from, to study under. I know they're trying to have a lot of newer, unheard of talent, both for monetary reasons, but also they are trying to push that, creative, mind thing going on at DC right now, and I think that would be a good person to study under. And like you said, still maybe more than they want to spend, but I do think less than it would be for Joe Hill.
Yeah. So we'll turn the page on that one. We'll revisit it as they add more titles to it, and we'll see how this line sort of develops and evolves as they do this. We'll stop here for a second just to remind you to please LCS, like, comment, and subscribe to your local comic book shop's YouTube channel. You can do that by clicking on the Brainstorm logo in the lower right-hand corner of your screen. Obviously, we read all the comments. We appreciate the time that you give us each week. But let's turn the page to topic number 2, and that is CGC is seeing such a big surge in the amount of books that they're getting that they have raised their prices. There seems to be a mini revolt going on the Facebook groups and even within some stores, people saying, oh, I'm leaving CGC, or I'm not submitting as many books, or what have you. What do you think the impact on the industry is going to be and on the company due to this?
I don't think it's going to impact the company in a way some people are. I know some people are looking at this and they're saying, why are you turning away money? Like, there are people that want to put their books out. But I think those people also need to remember that there are so many people, and if you have a book out there, you should be very well aware of that you're maybe still 3-month wait on your book that is still coming out. They've been taking strides
3 months
at that.
if you're lucky.
Right. They've been taking strides at that to improve it, but the wait time is still ridiculous, and this is something that is going to circumvent that a little bit. If there are people who, have these low dollar books and they're only putting it out every now and then, they're streamlining that and they're saying, look, supply and demand. We have this amount of workers, this amount of people that can do these things. What we are targeting right now is the high dollar books, the big spenders, the companies, the people that are sending these out. We are prioritizing that. That will eliminate a lot of the other, clutter that's in here, these other books that are in there. I know that if you are one of those people, that is not fun to hear, but at the end of the day, it is a business and they're running it in the best way they can to try to eliminate some of all that traffic coming in and all those books at once.
So as a business, there's only so many things you can control. You can control price, and you can control how many workers you have. You cannot control volume, at least directly. So like you were just talking about, one of the controls that you can exert is raising your price to lower the amount of books that you're seeing. Now, obviously, you have some people go, well, people are brand loyal to CGC. I'm not questioning the brand loyalty. I think you're still going to see that brand loyalty. What I'm saying is if you have a budget for $500 worth of books to be sent, well, now you're sending in 4 or 5 less books. And that might not seem a lot to you, but when you magnify it out over the wide range of people who are sending things in, you're now talking about, a 10% drop, which is probably what they were hoping for. So they added the 70 new employees that they talked about. They raised the price. I think on average 10%, 12%, something like that. Mm-hmm. So they're hoping that they get a drop of maybe 8%. They want it to be a little bit less of a drop than whatever they raised the price. That way they are increasing their profitability, but they're getting less volume and can handle what's coming in and process what's already there and that they're already behind on. Now, there are positives that'll come out of that. There are the people who will drop CGC. Like you're saying, I think it will be the lower tier people who only submit a couple books at a time. However, I think they'll go to CBCS, and I think that we'll probably see a surge in their prices. Everybody talks about how there's a premium paid for CGC books. I think you're going to see that get diminished by a lot, and I think you're going to see it for several reasons. Number one, because CGC is so far behind, you're going to see more CBCS books on the market versus what you already see in terms of CGC. So I think there's going to be a lot of positives coming out of this. I understand that people are angry that they raised the price, especially since the wait time is so long. But again, businesses only have so much power within controlling how much is coming in. I think, like I said, I don't think some people think CGC's reputation is going to be damaged. I don't think that's going to be an issue. No. There's already so much money in CGC by big spenders that you're not going to. They have a vested interest in keeping the CGC brand name alive and strong. I do think that CBCS will be a beneficiary, however. I think that they will see a surge in people submitting to them. And again, I don't think it's going to be 50%, but it'll probably be 15, 20% over what their volume was previously.
Right.
And like I said, if CGC is so far behind, you're going to see more CBCS books hitting the market than CGC. And therefore, the availability is going to help people push towards CBCS and raise their prices, hopefully in line with CGC. I don't understand the disregard of CBCS. I think that their cases are not. A lot of people complain about the labels. I think if that's your complaint about it, that's a minor thing. To me, you should be buying the book, not the label. That's a weird thing to me, but I don't know where you stand on that. But.
Yeah, I mean, I tend to agree, but there are people that look for just the littlest thing that they can poke a hole in. But like, again, some people are just loyal Marvel or DC. Well, CBCS is trash because I do CGC type of thing. It might not actually come from an actual specific incident, or like CBCS did something bad to them. It might just be that I'm a CGC guy, and so I'm
we've seen it in other things also. Coke versus Pepsi,
right?
Nike versus every other
sports company. Yeah.
But we'll turn the page on this one. We will track where the market goes in terms of like whether CBCS does catch up. And we'll also track and see whether CGC does like burst into flames because everybody has abandoned them and en masse and go from there. So we'll turn the page from there, and once again we will turn back to asking you guys to LCS, like, comment, and subscribe your local comic book shop, the YouTube channel. You can click on the logo down in the lower right hand corner. And if you click on there, you can go to the subscribe button. Obviously, like I said, we appreciate all of you that give us your time to watch. But let's move on to topic number 3. A few short years ago, Brian Azzarello helped launch the DC Black Label imprint with Batman Damned, which immediately gained notoriety for one specific panel.
He launched something already.
Exposing Bruce Wayne in more than one way. This week it was announced that he will be returning to the Black Label with a new 3-part miniseries. And that will be with the fan favorite Alex Maleev. And it will be on Suicide Squad Get Joker, which is obviously an homage to the 1970s movie. But in this one, Jason Todd is recruited by the Suicide Squad to finally kill the Joker. Is Jason Todd having the best year ever after 3 Jokers and now this miniseries coming up?
I think for somebody who doesn't have a book out of their own, he is having a really good year. I think you tie in 3 Jokers. Right now he's got Batman, Urban Legends, everything. Like I said, his book, for somebody whose book got canceled in the new lineup of everything, he's got his face out there. Like, brand recognition is definitely not failing him. I think this is just another step in the right direction. I think, like we said, we talked about this before in a different video, that he's one of those characters that has just had such a 180 from just literally everyone hating him so much they voted him to die, and that they didn't want anything to do with his character, to have this resurrection. And granted, they're very different, but have this resurrection in this character, and which wasn't necessarily widely accepted at first, but has had this slow burn where everybody at first accepting, okay, Red Hood is a part of the Bat family, then kind of accepting who he is, then starting to like him and say, okay, I kind of want this guy around, to now where I know most people, even if he's not their favorite, there's at least some point where you can go like, yeah, like he's pretty cool, or I'd want him in my back, behind me for a fight.
So Red Hood is probably the best thing that Judd Winnick ever did, like, which is a low bar. But Scott Lobdell definitely helped rebuild the character and build him in a way with the Outlaws. I felt like Artemis and Bizarro definitely brought out a new facet to that character and changed him in a way that was very positive for him. So, I mean, I think that Scott Lobdell definitely pulled a lot out of that character that I definitely didn't expect when I read that series when I first started it. But going back to 3 Jokers, I think he was more integral to that series than Barbara. I think he was more integral to that series than even Batman. I think he was really the driving force of it. His scenes with Batman, I think, were the most entertaining within that miniseries. When he's there yelling at Barbara, like, you trust him? He doesn't do this for us. He does it for himself. And calls him out on all the things that he claims to do for everybody else. I think that was a character-defining moment that Jeff Johns is known for, like bringing out characters that, like, that core of a character that people just attach to.
Well, his had maybe the biggest moment that sparked the whole, if you weren't excited about Batman 3 Jokers before, he is the whole reason those last couple pages in the, issue number 1 is entirely based on his actions and what he decided to do or didn't decide to do, really set that thing off that it was already, very anticipated. But after everybody read issue 1, there was no way that they weren't going to come back for 2 and 3.
And look what Jason did after that. He went to Barbara and he goes, "You could have stopped me. When was the last time you missed?"
Right.
And then he also went to Bruce and like, "Why'd you leave me there?"
Yeah, you knew it was going to happen. Like, don't put this on me. This isn't my fault. This is your fault.
I think that him calling them out, and then with the series coming up here next month or the month after, where it's in the future state where he's hunting Batman down.
Yep.
I think that the character is poised for like a serious breakout, and not that he wasn't a popular character already, but I think he has the potential to move to that next level, and become like a top tier character.
Everybody loves Red Hood, except in the actual comics, in which nobody loves Red Hood.
Like I said, 3 Jokers. I feel like as great as it was, I feel like they even missed a couple opportunities where they could have even taken them to the top level, to the next level there. But
well, there's still a one-shot coming out, so and rumored to be maybe a sequel series. So there's still some opportunity there. They can rehash some of that stuff.
Yeah. So we will turn the page on this topic, and one more time, we will ask you guys to like, comment, and subscribe to your LCS's local comic shop YouTube channel. If you click on the logo in the bottom right hand corner, it will take you to subscribe to the homepage, and they can subscribe from there. We appreciate all of you for doing that. But let's move on to the big topic, and this is one that I think is pretty near and dear to your heart because of how you got into comic books. When jumping into it, it can be very intimidating, especially if your first introduction is through the movies or TV shows or cartoons. There are a lot of titles out there on the wall. Especially if you come to our Walkersville location, there are a lot of boxes of books, and maybe you're like intimidated by the sheer number of books there also. Even if you go into like a Barnes & Noble, the number of graphic novels that are there can also be intimidating. It's easy to get overwhelmed just by the sheer number of suggestions and possibilities that are out there. So it's easy to get lost in that sea. What advice would you give to people so that they don't lose their enthusiasm? Like so not to get intimidated. Like what would you suggest that they start with, and how to jump into it without feeling that sense of dread of overwhelming?
I think a couple of things. First, I think it's important to start off slow. I think like with anything, it's very easy to burn yourself out, where if you're like, I'm really into this, I'm going to start really diving into whatever your cup of tea is, indie, Marvel, superheroes, DC, whatever it is, and you start really diving in and jumping in and just trying to get everything off the wall, I think you're going to burn yourself out really quickly, especially if you're not as familiar, if it's your first, couple times getting comics. I think there's a lot of books that come out, particularly Marvel and DC, every week. Even DC is stripped down now. There's still a lot of books that come out every week. So if you go too hot, too heavy right away, I think you're going to burn yourself out. You're going to get tired, I think, maybe even monetarily, but in just like sheer value of all these books and then trying to catch up and figure out what's going on. I think the second most important thing is to do a bit of research. In my own personal case, I started off with just one book. I started off with Batman that was being written by Scott Snyder at the time. I had done research even before that, where is a good jumping on point, because it would be like going up to a wall and just picking a book. The worst thing you can kind of do is to just see a graphic novel or a book and be like, I love that character, like look how awesome this cover is, I'm just going to read it. If you're a reader, there's nothing more frustrating, and I made that mistake too early on with flipping through the pages and realizing very quickly I have no idea what's happening here. I know the character, I know some things, but I have no idea what's going on.
So when you jumped into it, I know that you went to another comic book shop first, and you had asked for advice, and you were pretty much told, just pick up something.
Yeah, buy something or don't.
Now, I'm going to do something that a lot of comic shops probably wouldn't do. I'm going to tell you that there are a lot of things you can do to catch up without even buying anything and before you jump in. People who start today have it far easier than when I started. I started in 92. I did not have the amount of options to do that most people do today. Wikipedia is your friend. Wikipedia, not all the information is 100% accurate, but it will definitely be 95, 98% accurate and get you at least the ideas of what the characters have gone through over X amount of time. DC Infinite, or is that what they're calling it now?
I believe so.
DC Infinite, the app, is relatively cheap. It's $5, $10 a month.
Something like that.
and you have access to pretty much, if not all the DC comic books, a large number of them. And like I said, I know a lot of comic book shops would not recommend that. I think once you get into reading comic books, you want to read the comic books in physical form. Like, it's a different experience. I will also say YouTube can be a huge friend of yours. There's a great series that several of my employees use to help catch them up also, is Comics Explained, where they take storylines and they go almost page by page, is my understanding, and explain like a whole storyline. I think you may have used that once or twice on a series that you couldn't track down. If you want to talk about that, because I haven't watched any of those.
Yeah, and I think, like you said, like when I first started, definitely like I was just on Wikipedia, and it was literally, like, what do I need to know before I start reading? I mean, there are other plenty of resources. Wikipedia is a big one. There are different, Reddit, different other places where there are people that have just gone on there and they're like, hey, so like here's what happened from like 2000 to 2000, like here's what happened in this area, here are the big kind of like Cliff Notes version of what's going on. If you do want a particular story, like let's say you see something, from the movies, you say you just watched Falcon and Winter Soldier and you're like, I really want to know, from that first Winter Soldier movie, like how did Bucky really come back in the comics? And you can look for that story, and he'll probably take you with Ed Brubaker, and he will break down. He will take the book, if you don't have it or have access to it, and he will break it down panel by panel. He will give you some backstory beforehand of like, here's what's going on, with Steve, with Bucky, what you need to know going into it. Here it is at face value. Read it to you. It's not necessarily like a read along type thing, like you would have for like a kids channel or something like that, but really breaking down, okay, like here's what happened. Here's what that actually means. Like, why is this important? Like, why was this a dig at somebody, that you might have just glossed over, things like that. So that one is definitely very in-depth. If you feel like you don't need that much detail, you're like, I kind of just want the Cliff Notes, and then I want to jump on for myself, there's definitely plenty of online resources. I did that myself. A lot of websites that are dedicated just to comics.
There are tons of fans who are dedicated to each one, and they put in like lots of time, and it's not for money. It's because they love the characters. Yeah. There's lots of EC, I love EC, so there's lots of EC websites out there that go like into each story and why it was important for that time frame and how it led to other things. Also, I know I mentioned the DC one. Also, there's Marvel Unlimited, which is the same thing for them, where you have access to like all the Marvel books and on a monthly basis. I think they're 6 months behind the current ones, 3 months behind on the current one. So, I mean, another great resource if you're just trying to do a crash course and catch up. Graphic novels, like you said, are an easy way to jump in also.
Yeah.
You just want to make sure you grab the number one
right.
for that, because you don't want to like jump in the middle of a storyline. It seems like what both companies are mostly doing right now is when they bring on a new writer, they start with a new number one, and like they have their story that they want to tell, and then once they're done, we go back to a new number one. But like I said, there are so many resources out there right now. When I started, it was just like read until you understand. It was like a foreign language. Like, just throw you out there and
figure it out or die.
Pretty much. Which don't get me, I don't think there's a wrong way or right way. It was interesting doing it the way that I did it. I didn't do it the way that's available for people now. So I'm like, wow, I wish I had those resources when I was starting, but.
Yeah, and like I said, for me, like I started just with that Batman title. I heard, what is Batman going on right now? And they were like, it was at issue 38 or something like that. And I was like, well, I don't know a lot, but that probably wouldn't be a good place for me to start. And they were like, well, it's collected, and usually graphic novels, for people who don't know, I know a lot of people watching this do, they take a whole story arc. Comics, typically, they don't have all of their story contained in one issue. It's usually at the minimum 3, typically 5 to 6 issues, maybe 7. They collect all of that into one, normal size looking book, and then you have all of that together. So instead of having to have the single issues, you have the entire story in that one thing. It's important, like John said, to try to find that number one. I started there. I ended up getting the first 4 to 5 volumes of that until I was actually caught up myself. And I was only like a couple books behind of what had just come out. And so that's when I came into the store and said, hey, I've read up to this. Like, do you have any to get me caught up for the rest? Because I looked and said, at the time, I mean, since COVID, the production of graphic novels has actually gone up a little bit. It's come out a little bit faster. Before that, sometimes you'd have to wait 6 to 8 months after the storyline was done for something to come out. So I got caught up almost, and I was like, great, when's the next one coming out? They were like 7 months from now. I was like, I can't wait that long. Like, I want to know what's going on. So I went in. I was only a couple issues behind. I got caught up on that, and I finished the rest of the run in the individual issues. And then based on that, that gave me kind of a feel of what was going on, at least for DC. Right now, there were other things that were hinted at, events and things like that. And then just being in the store, talking with the employees, talking with John, and getting to know kind of what was going on with some other characters. Yes, absolutely. Absolutely. Other people just talking around the store, figuring out what was going on. So I think definitely doing your research, but when you get in to the store and you are interested in something, like, ask a lot of questions. Don't feel like you need to know and have all the answers. You know, we both read and we don't know everything about everything that's going on. I mean, John more so than me because he owns the store and needs to, but I don't know everything that's happening. I know a lot of things that are going on, but I do know a lot about other things. So if you don't have those answers, if you really want to get started, you know, you should do a little bit of research just to make sure you don't burn yourself by jumping in somewhere you didn't want to. But ask questions when you come in. Have people point you in the right direction. Ask for recommendations about things based on stuff that you like. That's the best place to get started. And typically, if you do that, you're going to find the things you want. Whereas if you just try to push through and figure it out on your own, you might grab a story that you think is cool based on a cover, or grab something from, you know, a company you've never heard of that you think might be superhero based, and it's actually something completely unrelated. And you don't want to burn yourself once and then think that, you know, you don't want to have anything to do with comics, when you could have a really enjoyable lifelong experience on your hands.
Well, I know that you know from personal experience with me that I always ask people, like, what led you to come to the shop? You know, what movie, what character, what part of the storyline. I try and get an idea of what they were attracted to, so I can make the right suggestions to kind of keep that fire going. If you don't, like I said, it's easy to get lost in the sheer number of books out there. But like I said, with the number of options out there, though, it's easier to jump into comics than what it ever was before.
Absolutely.
Also, you know, I always yell about Marvel and DC not doing this. I'll say it. Comic book shop locator, a great tool to also help find, like, your local comic book shop and find those people who can help you find the book that's right for you and everything. So, as I mentioned before, I don't like that Marvel and DC don't tout that enough. But.
Yeah.
So we'll turn the page on that one, and once again, we will ask you to LCS, like, comment, and subscribe to your local comic book shop, to the YouTube channel. In the lower right-hand corner, you can see the logo. If you click there, it'll take you to where you can subscribe. Don't forget to hit the notification button as well, so you know when we post new content. And now we'll go to our last topic. It'll be our quick take topic. I don't think there's necessarily a lot to say about it, but it was an interesting tidbit that we both saw. Fans are eagerly anticipating James Gunn's return to Guardians of the Galaxy, the franchise, for the movie franchise. However, they are getting a small little thing before that, and that is the Guardians of the Galaxy Holiday Special, which is clearly an homage to the Star Wars Holiday Special. Are you happy to see this? What are you hoping to see from it?
Well, I think Mark Hamill said it best when he said, "I have a bad feeling about this." I think if somebody was going to do it, I think James Gunn is a good person. He loves films. He loves these characters, both Marvel and DC and Star Wars. Like, he is a big comic fan himself. I think you're going to have fun with it. I think if there is an homage, I think there is going to be some stuff intentionally mocking and bad, and how, you know, the original Star Wars special is, which you definitely can have, you know, some fun with, and I think it would be great. And who knows, maybe even Mark Hamill maybe even show up. But I don't think you want a shot-for-shot remake. But
if any franchise is right for it, I think Guardians of the Galaxy is, for two reasons. Number one, it is kind of like the Star Wars, like, unlikely crew on this giant mission. But number two, like, it's just a fun, like, franchise where that group of actors get along very well. They clearly have fun with these characters, and I think that alone is enough to really push this special to being. Now, I think that one of the things that they should do is only air it once and then pretend like it never happened. Like, what are you talking about? Like,
for real. real homage to the original. Just
Yes.
bury it for forever. But I think you're right. I think it's also nice for fans who love the characters because, like we said, it still is going to be a while until that third volume comes out. James Gunn, was removed from the movie. A lot of other stuff in between has now filmed and has Suicide Squad coming out for DC. And has now been rehired, is back on for Guardians 3, but it's still going to be a while until that movie comes out. And it's unclear right now, based on all the things we've seen, if we are going to see those characters at all until the third volume comes out. So this will be a nice thing to kind of, get a refresher of Peter and Drax and everybody and people who really love those characters. Whet your appetite a little bit because it is still unfortunately going to be a bit of a wait until that third movie comes out. But this will be a nice, little intermission until we get there.
Well, in the Star Wars holiday special, we were introduced to Chewbacca's family, so maybe we'll get introduced to like Rocket's family.
True. Maybe Groot's family. Who knows?
Groot's family, yeah.
Definitely not Drax's family.
They also introduced Boba Fett in the holiday special, so maybe we'll get like a new character.
It's true. We could.
Is there anything that you're also looking forward to? Anything that you would like to see that them do a?
I think if they're gonna go like all out, I think they should try to get as many people from the a completely not like different roles, but maybe just Mark Hamill just in full Jedi robe, but like nothing to do, like not named Luke, like Lark or something, like totally like on the nose, but like nothing to do with it, no lightsaber, no anything like that, but just Star Wars adjacent. Have as many people as they can in there.
So I honestly think that this stuff like this is going to make or break Disney Plus. I think having this kind of fun sort of things on there where it's not just all like about the super continuity and tying it all together, where you have the ones that kind of break it down and like, okay, we're just going to do this fun one here and keep it to a fun level as opposed to like make it too heavy all the time.
Not take yourself so seriously.
Exactly.
Yeah.
I think that this was a brilliant idea on their part. I'm assuming it was James Gunn's idea. But I'm excited about it. I think that it'll do well. I think that we'll see where it goes, but I like it.
Hopefully it's fun.
So we'll turn the page there. That is our final topic for the day. In closing, of course, we want you to go back and watch. We just finished the putting up the superhero draft on our YouTube channel. Make sure you go back and watch that. If you enjoyed that or this episode, we also want to ask you to LCS, like, comment, and subscribe to Brainstorm Comics and Gaming's YouTube channel. You can do so by clicking on the logo in the lower right-hand corner. It will take you to the page where you can subscribe. Don't forget to click the notification button so you see when we have new content up. And of course, we want to thank you for watching and giving us your time. And we appreciate it very much. Thank you for watching.